Well, good morning again. My name is Daniela Perry. I'm the Vice President of the Georgia Chamber Foundation for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and we're so excited to have a great session here with Stephen Ferguson from Georgia AIM. Um, I know we had a presentation, Stephen, not with you, but with another colleague at Georgia AIM, and it's really exciting to hear about the work that y'all are doing. So without further ado, Stephen, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks again, Chris Kidd, who is also on the Max board and with the University System of Georgia, for helping to facilitate the introduction. So Stephen, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Really glad to be here. I'm Stephen Ferguson. I serve as the Managing Director for Georgia AIM, a research faculty member here at Georgia Tech, and I lead a manufacturing 4.0 consortium for Georgia Tech. Really excited to tell you all about some of the great work we are doing, not only here in Atlanta, but across the state. So Georgia AIM, we are a coalition of partners across the state. It is a $65 million grant that Georgia applied to. So Georgia Tech was in a lead applicant, but it really is a public-private partnership coming together that competed for and won a $65 million grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration. I say here on the slide, it's funded at over $90 million. I think we've actually crossed the $100 million mark now. That includes additional investment from the state, additional investment from Georgia Tech and the Institute here, but also through our coalition partners. Our goal, we're working to revolutionize the industrial economy in Georgia, plain and simple. We're developing and deploying talent and innovation, artificial intelligence across all manufacturing sectors. Moving on through this, really how we do this. I mentioned earlier, this is a coalition of partners. It's bringing together the best and the brightest and the most capable and the most skilled among the entire ecosystem. We're putting together innovators. That can be, researchers within R1 institutions. It could be those folks working in manufacturing facilities today that are changing, the way they make and produce and bring people in and get products out to the market. We are partnering with manufacturers, those that are small and medium or mom and pop shops, all the way up to the giant Hyundais and Kias and Kubotas, here in our state. Importantly, we're bringing educators to the table, not just those in research universities, but we're got a coalition of partners that include the technical college system of Georgia, technical colleges out in rural Georgia, K-12 programs, dual enrollment. The entire spectrum of education is certainly coming together to make this happen. And then we're working with the workforce development partners. TCSG is a great partner there. The Governor's Office of Workforce Development, WorkSource Georgia, Max, Metro Atlanta Chamber, the Georgia Chamber, everyone who's involved in workforce and economic development here in the state, we are bringing them to the table. We want them participating in this program. Our partners, this is a small list of who we're working with. There's over 47 different groups with active projects or participating in active projects, but this is a good kind of overview from the early days of the project when we put this together of, it's public and private partners, it's community organizations, it's U.S. government and military, national labs, public and private universities, working together hand in hand to solve what we saw is not really a workforce problem or an education workforce development challenge that Georgia Tech could solve, or I was at TCSG at the time we wrote and submitted the grant, but it's not really a TCSG problem to solve, it's a Georgia problem to solve. And we saw that, and so much so that we started mapping it out. We put together 8 different core projects. There's sub-projects underneath all of these. We put together 8 different core projects, and each one of these has an agreement with the U.S. Economic Development Administration in a work plan and a set of deliverables they're going through. Georgia Tech has some of those, but as you can see, we're bookending it here from Tech, but this is not about just Georgia Tech. It's about TCSG and Spelman. We got the Russell Center and UGA. I'll show you a slide later. You're going to see, Georgia Tech and UGA working together. We can do that, right? If you look across the state, there's a great football rivalry. They do win a lot. But you know, on the surface, we call them our friends in Athens. I think we would also be their friends in Atlanta. We collaborate and work to get things done. We got the Cyber Center, we got the Technology Association in Georgia, the Robbins Air Force Base and the 21st Century Partnership there in Middle Georgia, Southwest Georgia Regional Commission coming to bring rural innovation entrepreneurship to the table. And then I'm going to spend some more time later in the presentation specifically on the AI manufacturing pilot facility, which is where I sit here today at Georgia Tech. I'll show you this slide mainly because I really like this overview of how we work together. It's really not about each individual organization, but it's about what we can do as a whole. So Georgia AIM is working to become the nucleus of AI Industry 4.0 for manufacturing here in Georgia. We're now into year 3. We just wrapped up year 2 of this federal program. It's a 4-year fully funded program. But as we get into the second half of this, we're not looking to wind down. We're looking at sustainability. We're looking at what's next and bringing all these partners together, growing the whole pie here and making Georgia AIM a nucleus of this is a big part of sustainability. One thing I want to highlight as we talk about how we're getting out there and how we're taking AI to manufacturers is partnerships again. If you look, go back. If you look here, this is something we launched. We just celebrated Georgia AIM Week at the beginning of October. And Georgia AIM Week was kicked off with the unveiling of the brand new mobile unit that is part of the Russell Center, Rice, and UGA's core project. This mobile unit is built to take AI manufacturing on the road. We toured all across Georgia throughout the entire first week, kicking off here at Georgia Tech, into the week over at UGA, but really targeting communities, targeting high schools, targeting middle schools, but getting folks excited about modern manufacturing. You know, it's not the 4Ds, some call it 3, the dark, dirty, dangerous, and dull environment that it was of your parents and grandparents' generation. Manufacturing is really, really exciting. There's some cool things happening. We've got a lot of technology inside of this mobile unit, and it's all there to showcase the types of problems we're solving today, but also the environment that manufacturers are bringing to the table today. So if you get a chance, I'll share with the Max team kind of a schedule of where this is going to be and when. But we'd love to have you come tour. I'll make connections with the Russell Center as part nearby there today. But we're leveraging this to really get the word out and show people what modern manufacturing looks like. Moving from there, I mentioned I'd talk about the pilot facility. One of the pieces of manufacturing that really excites me, and in Georgia it really excites me, is the opportunity to work hand in hand with the research community and the manufacturers. What I learned from being at Georgia Tech is there's lots, I think you probably all could agree here, there's lots of really sharp people creating amazing inventions, coming up with great ideas. The sad part of reality is a lot of this intellectual property gets developed, sits on the shelf, waiting for the right opportunity to get commercialized, to really make it into the market. Where the AIMPF, or the Advanced Manufacturing Pilot Facility, and now the AIMPF expansion comes in, is this facility is a shared use facility. It's a place where we translate research into practice in near real time. We bring manufacturers into partnership with Georgia Tech in this amazing facility and partner them with researchers, partner with academics, partner them with other manufacturers to solve some of their biggest challenges. Today's statement, we have a 20,000 square foot R&D manufacturing high bay space. Scale up translation, right? We want to demonstrate technologies. We're solving problems already. But the exciting part is, because of Georgia AIM, we're able to convert this space. I sit here in one of the old Atlantic steel mill buildings. We're converting this into a 65,000 square foot space. We're opening up additional square footage in the facility through the investment from Georgia AIM. We're spending $40 million here. There's additional kind of in kind and in cash contributions from the Institute, but we're putting $25 million of new equipment, advanced manufacturing equipment here in the facility, spending $16 million on renovation to make this not only a world-class manufacturing pilot facility, but a world-class artificial intelligence focused manufacturing pilot facility. All of this is bringing together the data management systems, computing, cyber physical systems, the materials, robotics, automation, XR, VR, and then supply chain. The vision for this facility, and we're already renovating now, we're still operating while we're building out. The vision facility is, though, that we'll be able to connect and take a look at manufacturing processes from virtually any manufacturing vertical out there. We can already solve a lot of problems, but what this facility does, it starts putting the data behind the problems. Because if you want to do AI is a data science. We're bringing technologists to the shop floor. And that's what's really exciting. If you take a look at where that's going and what that's going to look like, this is the proving ground. I opened up, I want to slide back 2 slides because I want you to see down this hallway. This corridor right at the top right of the screen, that is part of that 20,000 square feet. You can't quite tell here, but it's almost tripled in size. Almost tripled in size. This is how we get the 65,000. I can also assure you that we're not going to have that much open space. If you were to visit today, welcome me to, anyone's welcome. I'll happily set up a tour of the facility. We have more equipment coming in, outpacing how fast we can renovate. We'll be fully renovated and up to speed here in October of 25. Welcome you anytime in between, but also then. Let's dive into the manufacturing ecosystem, though. For manufacturers, artificial intelligence is not a futuristic concept. It's already here. It's transforming industries in real time and truthfully at an unprecedented space. If you look at some national trends and what's happening in AI and workforce development, no surprise that since 2019, LinkedIn would report that there's over a 300% increase in AI-related job postings. Well, ChatGPT certainly helped bring that to bear, but we've been working on artificial intelligence for well over 50 years. According to the World Economic Forum's Future Jobs Report, 23% of all jobs will be changed due to AI and automation, but 44% of all workers are going to require retraining. AI, I firmly believe, will create more jobs than it replaces, but they're very different jobs. We have to focus on bringing the incumbent worker along. Georgia AIM's doing just that through all those projects. We're working with manufacturers, and not a single one that I talk to says, hey, we're going to automate tomorrow and we're just going to replace our entire workforce. No, they have an incumbent workforce. Some have been there for decades that they've got to bring along. So it takes the technical college system partnership to go train and retrain those workers. It takes WorkSource Georgia to come step in from the workforce development angle. It takes Georgia Tech to work with them to build engineers, to build programs, to build pathways that create opportunity for incumbent workers, but also for a pipeline to be built. And education to workforce pipelines are critical if Georgia is going to continue to be the #1 place to do business, but also if Georgia is going to continue this tear that we're on in winning manufacturing here in our state. A few more national trends. Everyone you talk to, workforce and being able to feel the needs of the manufacturers or the manufacturing plant they have there, it is the top challenge that everyone cites. There are changing expectations, right? People have different expectations of work, especially post-pandemic. But we have, if we're in manufacturing or in education related to manufacturing, we have a problem with that visibility. I mentioned the 40s earlier. Moms and dads and grandparents didn't go to work and blood, sweat, and tears because they wanted their kids to do the same thing they did. They did it so their kids would have other opportunity. What we've got to show them is, this declining attraction interest among students about manufacturing is we're not building things the way we did 50 years ago. We're not building things the way we did 20 years ago. Modern manufacturing is still hands-on, but it's more about data science. It's more about the data and information and automation. That's where we've got to blend these two different sets of workforces today. I call it technologist IT and OT operational. We got to blend those. We got to do it really rapidly. We've got those 30 plus year employees, the incumbent workforce is retiring. If we don't do some knowledge capture now, we're going to be in really bad shape. We are working on the education system and STEM talent, but we've also got to work with our manufacturers. One thing we're doing here with Georgia AIM is getting job training programs, because we can get somebody 89% there. There's still nuances to how you build something, and we're working hand in hand to do that. $13 trillion additional is going to be added to the global economy due to AI. At least that's the current projection today. But I would project what AI can do and the new industries it can create. This is probably a low number when you look at it on a global scale. The big question I get asked, though, is when is AI going to take our jobs? I got to remind you, AI is not just ChatGPT. AI is machine learning. It's machine vision. It's really data science. It's pulling together large, vast amounts of data and using different models to learn from that so that you can inform processes faster than humans can do that. But humans are still going to be in the driver's seat. I use this oftentimes to say that, ChatGPT is not taking your job anytime soon. This is actually a real-time conversation I had about 2 weeks ago. You probably saw there were some memes about this. But AI can only learn from the inputs that it's giving and given access to. And that's going to be human-created content. Now, you can train AIs on AI-created content, but this is a really good one about when is AI taking my job? Well, if you do any sort of writing or editing, AI is not taking it soon. If you've got students in high school and they're writing papers, make sure they check them. So this great example is, how many R's are in strawberry? ChatGPT says, well, it's got 2 R's in it. Are you sure? I'm absolutely sure. Has 2 R's, one in the middle and one toward the end. What if I told you it had 3? Well, I would assume you might be playing with a different spelling or creative interpretation, but I assure you it only contains 2 R's, but I'm curious to hear your perspective. AI is also trained to vigorously defend the knowledge that it has. And so it can give a compelling argument about what it believes. I'll use believes in air quote yet again. You can't take AI, or you can't take human out of the loop and trust AI inherently, at least not yet. It can still make mistakes. We call those hallucinations. Another good example, we train AI models. We train an algorithm. Hey, a vice. This is a vice inside a machine. It's meant to hold an object. Well, that doesn't mean you should put any object on the vice. But to a machine, it doesn't understand it, right? It's not truly learning. It's replicating and doing what you've done. Artificial general intelligence is not here yet. There is some debate on when that's coming. But as of right now, we're building off of models we create. And so AI and machines are not good at everything. There's still roles for humans here, not only in programming and building AI, but in quality and validation and this sanity check. Another good example I like to use, if we use a machine learning algorithm, we teach to a robot, hey, look, in this equation, it's equal to infinity. The robot just looks at numbers and data, and all this becomes pictures. And it's like, hey, I can easily solve your problem. What do you think its result was? Oh, yeah, we just invert that number, right? We just rotate that number by 90 degrees. There you go. Because it's not a number to a robot, at least when you're training different types of models, it's an image. But that doesn't mean we can't teach them. Humans are expected to be lifetime learners, right? You don't stop learning when you grow up. If you do, you're going to be left behind pretty quickly. A machine, traditionally, we train machines. We build machines. They do one thing. They do it forever. Not so much anymore. This is where AI comes in. Every time a machine has an operation, it's an experiment. Humans are building out the data systems to learn from this and train the machine and the algorithms on it. One of the big things that AI can do for us is learn or interpret data at speeds humans can't and give near real-time feedback to those systems. So looking from there, kind of a funny joke here, if you're into technology, there's 10 types of people, or 1-0, those who understand binary and those who do not. That's the language of machines. It's on or off. It's binary. There's no gray area. All right. So let's talk about where AI works really well. Your grandmother's cell phone uses data from at least 3 satellites, numerous machine learning models, cloud-based services, and connects to a cell tower, sometimes miles away, just to report the weather, right? Those are good uses for technology. But leverage AI where it excels at data crunching, leverage people where they excel. Creativity, ingenuity, experience. That's where the intersection needs to happen. And so it's not about artificial intelligence replacing people. It's about artificial intelligence augmenting people. Think about it as intelligence augmentation, making the person more capable, more informed, and freeing them up from doing repetitive tasks where you're just crunching data, you're iterating, you're doing the same thing over and over. Machines do great at that, but use people where they really shine. All right, back to the big picture. In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. I say this because, as I mentioned earlier, humans are meant to be lifetime learners. We are now rethinking what that means. And here at Georgia Tech, we are opening up a brand new college of lifetime learning. The first college, I forget the exact number of years, that has come to bear in a number of years. A good friend and colleague, Dr. Nelson Baker, I should say Dean Nelson Baker now, is the inaugural dean of Georgia Tech's College of Lifetime Learning, because we recognize as an institute that society is no longer committing themselves and working on committing themselves to these 30-year plans. They're going to have multiple different careers over their lifetime. They're going to have probably a dozen jobs, 2 to 3 careers, and they're going to have to retrain. People are going to have to retrain. They're going to have to reinvent. They're going to reskill, upskill, cross-skill continuously in order to remain competitive and also continue to evolve throughout their career lifespan. Now, this College of Lifetime Learning initiative is an academic unit that focuses on research, education, and service. It's a combination of multiple units within Georgia Tech, seismic and professional education. And professional education is still going to do what it does. We're still going to run these non-credit programs. They're growing at an unprecedented pace. We're still going to teach the online and the master's programs, the professional master's programs, but we're now adding this academic unit on that we can train people that then also focus on how do people evolve throughout their careers? How do we prepare and pivot into careers? How do we bring leaders to the table that are going to work in business and industry and academia to focus on lifetime learning? Because I know that my child who's in 9th grade learns very differently than I do as a middle career professional, right? It's just a very different learning model. And so we have to use not only our knowledge of industry and business, but AI to start transforming how we teach and how we learn and how we rapidly skill people for new jobs, new careers, new opportunities. We will be expanding the access to learning across for Georgia citizens, companies, and beyond. This College of Lifetime Learning will do the same things that Georgia Tech is really good at. Is we build it here in Georgia, we become a national model, and we have an impact on a global scale. I would remind you, though, it's not just online learning. It's not just a new college of education. We're focused on how people learn and having an impact on that. I'll give you one more thing here. This is a little smattering of the types of academic programs we're focused on, and this is what's going to enable Georgia Tech to not only remain, one of the top universities, but really take a lead role nationally in thinking about training people for the future of AI and training for people for the future of workforce. All right, I will pause there as Georgia AIM leads the AI manufacturing revolution and take questions.
Stephen, thanks so much. That was a great overview. And I mean, super excited, I think, to hear, of course, what Georgia AIM's doing, but of course, some of these initiatives at Georgia Tech, certainly hear from the employers we do every day. Everything really resonates. We've got some great questions in the chat I want to go to first. But had a question from Dr. Maxine Kane about how can community-based organizations and or other workforce development organizations support what y'all are doing, especially if there's anything on the K-12 side or early career professionals. I know a lot of those folks are kind of trying to figure out their path. How do they grow? What are those opportunities? So any insights there would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, reach out to me. Go to georgiaaim.org as well. The projects and contacts are there, but feel free to reach out to me. I will connect you to the team. We have a K-12 engagement group through Seismic. Dr. Roxanne Moore leads that effort, but we've got a lot of other folks engaging there. I think if we want to target K-12, we also can talk with the Technical College System of Georgia. That also kind of impacts that early career professional area. Dual enrollment is a really great opportunity to get kids thinking about it because, here in Georgia, we had 132,000 students graduate from high school last year. High school seniors graduated last year. Roughly 66,000, 50% went right to college. A number of them, about 25% of all of them, 25, 30% went right to work. And that's that early career professional or early career person, because we want to have an impact on them if we can get them the skills they need to be above a minimum wage worker and get some skilled work in and start building a portfolio and kind of a resume during that time. I think dual enrollment's the right opportunity to get there. But yes, reach out. I will connect you to all the right people. We'd love to have you involved because it is the partnerships that matter.
Great, and we'll make sure everyone to share Stephen's contact info, Stephen, if that's okay with you. But I think really excited and certainly couldn't agree more. I think that dual enrollment, either if you're a university system or you're a technical college system, it's a great opportunity for you to start getting exposure and try to, if you do go directly in the workforce, I know most employers will pay for you to continue your education if you want to continue that. So it's a great way for you to try something, get some credits within the university system or TCSG, and then go apply it and kind of refine what you want to do. So super exciting. We do have one question, and Stephen, I'm so glad you talked a lot about this because we get a ton of questions about the impact of AI. What's it going to do to the workforce? How's it going to change jobs? And I think you've seen, some things in the news lately about how, groups are responding and thinking about this and having fears. And so we had a question about, how do you predict some of this to change either a blue collar job or a white collar job. And I think if you could just kind of dive into that a little bit more, because I think that we really see the opportunity for people to grow in their skill development and for things that are, I think to your point, really good for a machine to do or a computer do, that's their specialty. They get to do that. But humans really get to be specialists in thinking and evolving and problem solving, that communication. So if you could dig a little bit more into that, I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah. So, I think as we get into Industry 4.0 and manufacturing 4.0, there's a new term out there called new collar. It is a blended environment of blue collar and white collar. Neither of them is bad, right? They both have a purpose, but we're really looking at new collar jobs. I'll give you a great example. Someone who's been welding for 30 years, they can see and observe optically, what looks right welding, right? They can feel it, they can hear it, they can smell it. They have all of these senses engaged, And somebody who has honed their craft over decades, one of the things they would tell us is, man, I know this is a good weld when it sounds like bacon. Okay, well, how do you train somebody to make it sound like bacon? How do you train a robot to even know what bacon sounds like? And this is where this intersection of workforce comes in, because we've got an emerging workforce pipeline of young folks coming in that go, hey, I'm really interested in working and being a part of this manufacturing ecosystem, but I don't think I'm going to weld for 30 years. I'm not going to get that level of experience. And they're not just like sitting there with tons of experience ready to take over. And so we work with them to capture knowledge. We work with them to start training sensors and robots with optical sensors, thermal sensors, acoustic sensors, all these different things. And that's where that intersection comes in from the data science. We need computer scientists that want to work with their hands, right? Because they still need to know what a good weld looks like and how it works, but they're going to master the craft of training a robot or automation on a lot of these processes. But we can't forget the incumbent workforce here, this 30-year person, and capture that knowledge, because if the computer scientist comes in and programs a robot, it'll weld, but it's not going to pass a test. And that's the intersection. So we're creating a new collar of jobs. They're not blue collar, not white collar. They're intersecting.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it, because you do really have to leverage both sides of it, and it creates completely new opportunities that I think it's hard for us to wrap our heads around right now because they don't exist. So maybe that's why we're all a little on edge, but all good things to come. And did have a comment too from Patrick Ledford with DOE. If you could kind of just talk a little bit, I think Georgia AIM is really cool that y'all are thinking cross-functionally, bringing in different assets within the state, different universities, different partners. But if you could kind of describe the, importance of our state's whole workforce development ecosystem responding proactively to this training and upskilling, to make sure that workers are able to evolve, grow, really be effective at that lifelong learning, and maybe kind of if there's any specific initiatives with Georgia AIM that y'all are focused on at present.
Absolutely. So prior to joining Georgia Tech, I've only been here for 8 months. I spent 23 years at the Technical College System of Georgia. The last 9 years of that, I served as our Chief Information Officer. I had data, I had IT, kind of native to CIO, but also started our research practice and our innovation practice. And that innovation practice was working across all of TCSG to do exactly what you're talking about. And we focused on education to workforce pipelines. And the big component was not of just solving the today problem, right? Because if you look at higher education right now, and you think about a company coming in and saying, hey, I need 50 people to do this one task. Higher education is going to say, okay, well, that's great. Let's go spend 6 months mapping out all the skills and the knowledge, and let's spend 6 more months building it, and then let's spend 6 months getting it approved. And probably 18 months from now, we can stand up a program, and in 2 years, we can start cranking out the people you need. And the manufacturer's like, well, I need 50 people today. That doesn't work, right? And so this innovation group was really a forward-looking team. And our goal was to anticipate what's coming, right? To be more anticipatory of the shifts and changes. And so looking for little pockets and bubbles of need and aggregating those, because you also don't start a program for 10 or 15 people, right? But if you start looking across the entire system and see that, oh, there's a pocket of 2 or 3 here and 5 or 10 here, you can aggregate that up. And now there's certainly a need and more of a global view need. So the different programs that are out there, one is through TCSGs and the university systems, customized training programs. So if you think about the credit-based programs, that's what I described a minute ago. It can take 18, 24 months to get something stood up and years to start cranking out. But we have what's called non-credit. We have their customized training, their economic development or professional education, lots of different names for them out there, community education. But those programs, those are the rapid response programs, right? They're keeping their pulse on, or keeping their thumb on the pulse of what's changing and what's needed today. Both sets of institutions do a phenomenal job in response to manufacturers. We can stand those up very quickly. But the really cool thing at TCSG is the Office of Workforce Development. WIOA, if you're familiar with that term, WIOA's titles 1, 2, and 3 live within TCSG. That's the dislocated worker. That's the adult education. And I saw someone ask about GED and adult learners. So yes, been plugging them in. There's some great programs in Georgia that actually plug in those individuals with skills training and GED training at the same time. They can get technical certificates credit and move forward. But then also this career services piece. And so working with workforce development, all those WIO programs and the education programs, both credit and non-credit in the same agency, really gave us a leg up on identifying things that were coming, tying that into those that are serving that incumbent workforce, those dislocated workers, and then now matriculating over into the university system. So it really is a pipeline, right? So there's the immediate response people. That's going to be your non-credit and your workforce development. There's the technical education, which is that short-term TCC and up to associate degree. Then there's the research universities here. So we're doing things for people today, people a year from now, people 2 years from now, and then coming out of tech in those, 4 and 5 years from now. It's putting together that pipeline.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting. And to you, it really builds this like responsiveness. So you're able to really quickly learn, grow, and evolve based on the needs too from industry that you're hearing, which is super important. I know that, again, y'all talked a lot about, I think, Stephen, especially about kind of the data science of this and having that information and being able to real time report back and use the data to better inform processes. We had a question about, does your initiative focus on integrating AI into some of the administrative processes across manufacturing and connecting machinery to improve reporting accuracy and efficiency? And I'm sure obviously those data scientists, would able to better leverage that. But if you could talk a little bit about that part of it a bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about the IT OT I mentioned earlier, right? Traditionally, IT has ran the business side of manufacturing. OT, the machines, they've ran their own side. That's ran out of maintenance or maybe some special teams that do that. And typically they butt heads because the IT people are doing all of the systems that work on the administrative side. The OT people, their responsibility is to keep it up and running. And when the line's not running, they're not making money. And so they're judged off of uptime. But what we're really asking them to do is invite each other into their worlds, because for data collection, data aggregation, and even more importantly, getting the information out of the data, it's going to be a collaborative effort within organizations. And it's not that organizations aren't functional, they just haven't had to work together. And there's been this push and pull, right? Uptime and production is way more important than anything else to the bottom line. However, I walked into a manufacturer recently and they have a great line. They're making billions of a product every year. It's pretty amazing. But they said, oh, this line here stops 100 times a day. And the operators working on this line, their sole goal is to get it back running. We know, because we've added all these really cool sensors, we know what sensor tripped and what sensor stopped this from operating, but we don't know why. And this is where those folks on the business side can really lean in, because if the goal and the bottom line was to get it to back in operation as rapidly as possible, what if the data scientist folks could come in and create a way to better understand why it stopped and take that stoppage down to 1 or 2 times a day? And that's just this difference of push-pull, bringing in the administrative process to this, because these logical thinkers and technologists and other folks that go, hey, well, the root cause is this one thing's out of whack or miscalibrated. Yes, you can correct that 100 times a day and you'll get it back up and running, but it doesn't solve your problem. So it's that root cause analysis. That's what's happening. We're also seeing this peek into AI, AI peeking into HR, AI peeking into other business processes and helping inform decisions. We're going to have pockets of experts that emerge within manufacturers. They're going to be able to help carry the torch or be the champion for lots of integration. But it's going to take time, right? Those champions are emerging, but it's still such a nascent technology that people just haven't readily adopted yet. But once we figure out it's not just ChatGPT and start looking at all the other things and looking at the data models we're going to need, we'll quickly learn it's going to take a collaboration of all the people across in order to get it done.
And thank goodness it's not just Chat GPT. Otherwise, that would be
Yeah.
terrible thing. We do have some questions too, kind of about, the funding opportunities to support AI training programs. I was curious if Georgia AIM is offering, or kind of through some of the federal grants and stuff, if there's funding either for workforce development organizations or employers that are kind of partaking in these programs. How have y'all kind of worked on that side, or is that maybe kind of a future opportunity that y'all see?
Yeah, there's funding in several different models happening today. So as we look at Georgia AIM itself, so that was a kind of a 4-year infusion of capital. The goal though is to make that sustainable. We're already pursuing other grant programs. We've been successful in many of those. We've built out consortia to help sustain. So here in the Advanced Manufacturing Pilot Facility, I've got a consortium of manufacturing 4.0 entities that help come together to solve problems. We'll be leveraging those consortia in the future to help build some sustainability. We also are operating in a shared services model where we make facilities available outside of just Georgia Tech. So we have public-private partnerships, other academic units across the state or nation can come here. Manufacturers, there's a published rack rate, per hour machine time they can come use the facilities. So we're building things out with sustainability in mind, and bringing in other funding streams. So, one of the cool things about having the opportunity to spend $65 million on a bunch of projects is you have a thing now, right? There is the old adage, if you build it, they will come. That's somewhat true here. This really big thing's been built. So there's lots of people wanting to come in and help, and that those partnerships, breed collaboration and create opportunities to bring in additional funding streams. We'd love to, hear what anyone else has in mind. We're helping other people go after things, even when it doesn't benefit us directly. We'll use the connections of Georgia AIM to help support their efforts and their funding ambitions.
Yeah, and I think, you talked about the ecosystem, and I think too about so many of our larger employers like your Kia, Hyundai, Q cells. I mean, you go into those facilities and it's, you know, very far from what I think people traditionally think of as manufacturing. And it's something that's highly detail oriented, uses tons of robotics and the investment they've got. So I think it's an incredible opportunity. So too, kind of as y'all are all thinking about future projects or needs, I think Stephen and his team would be a great resource to continue to do that. And I think someone mentioned would be a great opportunity too for apprenticeships. I know obviously TCSG is their apprenticeship program. So I'm so glad everybody's connecting the dots about all of this. We did have one
Tag actually announced an apprenticeship program too. So they have an IT apprenticeship program through the Technology Association of Georgia for certain. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities there.
Yeah, and Joy, maybe we can link that too in the notes too if folks are interested in learning more about that, as well as the TCSG one. But there's one question about, all of this change, how do you even know what to start training for? What kind of job is available? It can be a little uncertain. And I think we had another question about how y'all are continuing to get the word out. I have a 2.5-year-old, and so the idea of thinking about what she is going to have, obviously, you see stats. I know we like 60-70% of the jobs in 30 years aren't going to exist today, all of those things. But where does it kind of leave, I think, workforce developers and, job seekers today? Like, how can you position yourself well to move forward?
Yeah, and I think one of the places to position yourself is get started, right? I mean that's the first and foremost is get started. I go into manufacturers often. In 8 months of being here, I think I've met with 150 different manufacturers. So I have my ear out of what's your biggest pain point. What are you wanting to do? And I go visit a lot of them too, with my colleagues from Georgia AIM and from Georgia Tech. And we look at it and go, hey, there's some low hanging fruit here, right? And for most of them, it is on digitization. It's just getting started. It's starting to collect the data, understand what you have. In manufacturing, there's not a large language model or data set of machine learning images that are going to inform just all these manufacturing processes. ChatGPT was able to go in and leverage lots of things on the internet, and they had lots of models they built to train off of. That doesn't really exist natively in manufacturing. We're building those so we can have a baseline set, maybe an 80% near net set of what manufacturing processes look like, and then capture some data, add on, the nuances and proprietary information of the manufacturers we're serving. But because of that proprietary nature, the stuff just doesn't exist. So the big first step we're doing with manufacturers, if they don't already have some digital manufacturing in place, if they're not already using sensors to analyze and pull data and start, cataloging that and standardizing, that into a database somewhere, that's the first step. And then look at what the data are telling us and find out what is maybe a low-hanging fruit, whether that be predictive maintenance or working on optimizing inputs, or even working on tying the back end quality assurance piece up to the front end where the product's made, and working to eliminate defects before they happen. And so all of that is, until we have a kind of cohesive data system for that organization, that's step one. So that's a get started model. Don't think you're going to just bring in robots to replace people day one. How are we getting the word out? That's the partnerships, right? So that's all the different entities. TAG is getting the word out constantly. The Russell Center, the Georgia AIM mobile lab with the Russell Center and UGA, the 21st Century Partnership working down in Central Georgia, specifically focused on veterans and programs there. Southwest Georgia Regional Commission out in Southwest Georgia. We have been on kind of a national tour. I wouldn't say a global tour, a national tour, talking about Georgia AIM just outside of Georgia, helping other folks understand how these partnerships can come together. But bringing the regional commission, we've done presentations at the regional commission about Georgia AIM. We've been in the K-12 system. So if you have an organization or you're part of a professional society or something that wants to come talk, let me know. We'll get folks there. Things like this, right? We want to get in front of people to spread the word and then figure out what connection points we should make.
Yeah, and I know we had Donna Ennis from y'all's team present to our manufacturing council, did a great job, was really excited. So all of them are really, again, excited about the opportunities. Um, I think we've just got a few minutes left. And so I know, Stephen, if there's anything kind of around that new Institute for Lifelong Learning, I think is super exciting too. I know folks are really interested, but kind of what's the best advice if people are looking to learn more on that side?
Yeah, so the College of Lifetime Learning, I will send you a link to the new page that you can share out with everybody. That is a brand new college. It just got approved, I think 2 months ago is when it made it through the Board of Regents and got voted on here. It has been years in the making. That will be launching. It's launched now because it's a concatenation of several other programs, right? So the Fresh Education Group and Seismic that already had existing programs are wrapped up underneath that, and so it's already doing the activities it did before. But as far as academic programs, I think those are slated to start as early as next fall. But I'll get you the link to the site, and you can learn more there. And then I'll make you some connections out to Nelson Baker and his team as well.
Wonderful. Well, Stephen, I think again, thank you so much for everything that y'all are doing at Georgia Tech with Georgia AIM. Chris, thanks so much again for the connection here, and certainly really proud of everything. We've gotten some questions about, can we get the presentation? Yes, we'll send out the recording, send out the presentation. Make sure you've got Stephen's contact info. So if y'all got additional questions for Stephen or the rest of the Georgia AIM team, I know that's got a whole thing. So we're really excited. And again, Stephen, thanks so much for spending time with us this morning. We are so appreciative. So again, thanks, Stephen and Chris, for everything. We'll make sure to send out the details. And again, if you're looking to connect further with Stephen and his team, but y'all have a great Friday.